All right, you're very welcome to this week's RTÉ Soccer Podcast. I'm Raf Diallo, and you can get every episode on RTÉ.ie, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. We've got loads coming up on the domestic and international fronts. Later on, we'll talk about the Ireland men's squad that was named last week and review all of the men's Premier Division action. But right now, I'm joined by Shelbourne midfielder Rachel Graham and RT Sports Anthony Pyne. We will review the women's Premier Division action shortly. But first, hello to you both. And I suppose, Anthony, you've been busy this morning covering Carla Ward's squad announcements for the last two Women's Nations League fixtures against Turkey and Slovenia, and there's quite a few takeaways from it.
Yeah, I guess like the big takeaway is Erin Heaney, the new recruit, playing in Australia with Adelaide United, born in America in San Diego, and came through like played college football there, went to Portugal for a while, and then wound up in Australia and kind of flirted with the idea of actually just giving up the game. She's only 23, I think. But she had, a qualification behind her. She was going to embark on a career in accounting and had a job lined up. But when she went to Portugal for that spell and that season, she got a real taste for playing football for a living and went to Australia. And by all, the talk is that she is going to be playing in Europe next season. Like there's clubs from the WSL looking at her and in the NWSL also. But it looks like there's a real good chance that she'll be playing in England next season. So that also enhances her the prospect of her being a regular in Ireland squads. I mean, I haven't seen her, Raf, looking at clips online. There was talk that this was going to happen. There were whispers because she's been really open about her desire to play for Ireland. She got her citizenship last September. And Ireland have been looking at her for quite a while. Carla Ward said this morning that Leanne Kiernan's injury opened the door for her. So she's athletic and quick and has an eye for goal. You never really know like how players are going to transition onto the international stage. And we don't know if she'll even get an opportunity in the next two matches because they're really big games. And we've seen before, like Mel Phillips was in Carla Ward's first squad. She didn't get a kick in that window, and we haven't seen her since. So I don't know if she's going to feature, but it's an interesting addition. And the other big takeaway was Louise Quinn, which we did know that last week. Carla Ward had said that last week that Louise will be coming back in. She retired or announced her retirement earlier this month from club football, but she didn't actually explicitly say she was gone from international football, and she wants to get a swan song, which I think she absolutely deserves. She hasn't played since last July against France. She played in that game in Cork, the 3-1 win against Cork, and with injuries and stuff, she hasn't been in since. But she's involved. She's the 24th player, and these are usually 23 player squads. This one is actually 24. They asked for permission to have an extra player. Louise is the extra player. So again, there's no guarantee that she'll feature, but if she doesn't feature in this window, she'll get games in one of the friendlies, if not both of them, against the USA, which is they take place in the States at the end of June.
Yeah, I suppose first, Rachel, just on Erin Healy as the sort of new face and as someone who was described in the press conference by Carla as a natural replacement for Leanne Kiernan, who's out injured with a quad injury at the moment. Have you seen much of her at all? It seemed like even if there were whispers, she's kind of a little bit out of sight, out of mind. So I don't know what you made of that call up.
Yeah, I actually never heard of her before. She's never played underage international, so she's not someone that I was aware of. And like Anthony, I was kind of looking her up online this morning and trying to find bits of her, but there's very little. But the only thing I would say is, there was highlights of the game that she played in the Australian League, and the standard of the game was really, really good. So, she's obviously at a similar standard if she's able to start in these games and play in these games. But I think Anthony was right. It was a very physical, like athletic type of league. She looks very quick and very mobile. So look, you don't know how they react when they come into these squads, how they adapt, but she's definitely someone that has the attributes of being an athlete. Now sometimes that doesn't always come across the technical side of the game, but look, she's obviously impressed Carla with what she's seen online, and from what I've seen online, she's definitely someone that we could really do it in terms of the athleticism of someone up front. If we're kind of sitting deep in against a team and you want to kind of catch them on the break, seems like she'd be perfect for that. So look, we'll see how she gets on. It's an interesting one. I've never heard of her before, but like Anthony said, there seems to be a bit of noise about her, and if she has interest from clubs in England and America, she must definitely be at a good standard.
Yeah, and Louise Quinn's inclusion. I know a couple of weeks ago we were talking about her in terms of having announced her retirement and just what she's done for the game here and what would be a fitting send off as well, even if it's not in these two games, given they're competitive, but even in the, as Anthony said, in the friendlies that come later on.
Yeah, I think Anthony's right. I think it's right to give her, her swan song, and even that game down in Cork, if she doesn't get on, but she could be on the pitch at the end to, say goodbye to the fans, or she might even say a few words to the fans after that game or before that game. But it's definitely, she absolutely deserves whatever send off they're going to give her, whether it be in America or here. But I think either way, she'll probably have some sort of goodbye down in Cork, and it's what a servant she's been to this country, and she's someone that you don't ever. I don't know if we'll ever replace her or get closer, but no, she's been excellent. Whatever send off she gets, it's fully deserved.
Yeah, and I suppose from Michelle's point of view as well, another positive in the sense that even Clancy is in there again as well. So I imagine that's kind of, as a squad, you're kind of delighted for.
Yeah, no, we were all delighted because look, we knew she was on the long list, but she didn't know she was in the final squad again. But look, brilliant for Avine. She's been absolutely super for us. Super again at the weekend. She's like that. She's very athletically built. She's very quick, powerful, and in football that can be sometimes half the battle. And she has that in her. So look, she's been flying form for us, and she didn't get any minutes in the last camp, but I'd love to see her get a few minutes this time. Not even just for Shelbourne, it's another person representing our league, which is brilliant. So hopefully she gets a few minutes this time.
Yeah, and Anthony, I suppose another thing, like I was up at Abbottstown last week for Heimir Hallgrimsson's squad announcement, and there were kind of whispers about Hannah Dingley and that she was going to be leaving, and as has been since confirmed, she's stepping away from the role of FAI's head of women's and girls football to take on a role at Manchester City. It's not even that long ago that I think you were up. I think it was at the Mansion House for the revelation about the action plan for the action plan for women's and girls football. So things have kind of moved quite quickly, and it's been kind of quite a short-lived tenure there.
Yeah, it's pretty much bang on a year. Now she's not gone yet, but she will go in the summer. And would have a very strong reputation in England. She was the academy manager at Forest Green Rovers. She became the first woman to manage a senior men's team in English football when she became their caretaker boss for a spell after Duncan Ferguson left. So her stock, she's well respected in the game. Carla Ward had a good relationship with her because they actually played together years ago. And yeah, look, it's just another little bit of upheaval behind the scenes because Mark Canham is departing as the chief football officer in the next few weeks. Shane Robinson is filling in as on an interim basis under the title of technical director, but he's going to fill that void for a short term while they find a replacement for Mark Canham, and now they have to find a replacement for Hannah Dingley, and it's a really important role. Her action plan that she unveiled in the Mansion House. I mean, to be honest with you, Raf, it was a little bit underwhelming because I thought there was a lack of specifics within it. I mean, there was it talked about like keeping girls in the game and the very high dropout rate of young teenagers in girls and women's football, and issues with facilities and the huge number of football clubs in this country that just don't have adequate, not even adequate in some cases, any facilities for women and girls. Um, but there wasn't really anything that laid out specifically what they're going to do to change this, and that's I can't. You couldn't really blame Hannah Dingley for that because the money's not there. This all comes down to money. You can't change stuff like this. This is infrastructure, and you just can't change that without significant financial backing, which is going to have to come from the government. So that's something that the FAI are obviously still working on and trying to lobby for that. So it wasn't difficult for her in that regard, but yeah, look, a year in a role like that is no time at all, really. That's a kind of project job. I think you need someone in there for 3 to 5 years to come up with a vision or a blueprint and see it through. And we don't know what's going to happen here. You can't assume anything. But Eileen Gleeson did hold that position before she took the head coach job, the Ireland head coach job. She's still in employment with the FAI under the terms of her contract, although she was really, her contract as manager, head coach wasn't extended. Eileen is still in employment with the FAI, and you'd think it just makes sense for her to return to that role. She knows it. She was good at it, very passionate about it. But look, we don't know yet what will happen there. We'll have to see. But there is just there's a little bit of a void in that sense in the association at the minute. So there's a bit of work for them to do over the next month to get those positions filled, because they're both very, very important roles within the game here.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see how that pans out over the next few weeks and months. Now, in terms of the Ireland squad as well, Megan Campbell is named in it, but Rachel, she was released by London City Lionesses after their promotion from the Championship and would have played 11 games for them. And also, it's actually just only a few weeks. She set a Guinness World Record for longest thrown by a female footballer only a couple of weeks ago. So that's 37.55 meters. So I imagine she'll be in demand given the experience she's had at international level and also what she's been doing to a good effect in the Championship as well, because I don't think it wouldn't escape notice that London City Lionesses' statement was very thankful for her time there.
Yeah, look, there's no denying Megan's talent. She's an unbelievable player. She's been, a standout player for our national team for so long. But the only worry I would have is, the list of injuries that she had. And like you said there, she's played 11 games. So like, you're really only getting her probably for half your games of a season. So over in England, it's a lot more cutthroat than here, and it's a business, and someone's looking at whatever they're paying her and whatever they're getting in return. Is it worth it? So that's the only thing you would worry about. I don't really see her going to a Super League club. It could be, the first division, I would imagine, is where she'll play, where, say, a club might, take the gamble on her, where they, manage her minutes or manage her training. They're happy to do that. But I think at the likes of a top team in the top league, I don't know if they'll be able to gamble on a player who can only play half their season. So look, there's no doubt she has the talent. It's just whether, a team or not takes a gamble on her. And obviously London Lionesses have won the league and gone up, so they're obviously not worth taking the gamble on her. So it probably is a Division 2 team that's going to be looking at her. And you just hope she will get a club. I know she's 31, she's had a lot of injuries, but she definitely still has more years in her. It's just they obviously have to be managed. So look, hopefully it is a case she gets a club in England, and you never know, you might see her return to Ireland, the same as Ruesha Littlejohn. But my only worry for her would be is, the list of injuries that she has and whether a team or not takes a gamble on her.
Yeah, and then on Saturday it's the Women's Champions League final, and it's in Lisbon, 5 o'clock kickoff. And it was only a few weeks ago, Rachel, we were chatting about Katie McCabe and Arsenal getting to the final, getting past Lyon. But I think, as you indicated at the time, this is a hugely daunting task given what Barcelona represent within the game, and it'll be a tough ask, obviously, to follow what the 2007 generation of Emma Byrne, Ciara Grant, and Yvonne Tracy did. But at least there's the template there that Arsenal have kind of been there and done that before, even if it's quite a long time ago.
Yeah, look, I think, Barcelona at the moment is the toughest game in women's football that you can probably get. Even the form that they're in at the moment, they're going into that game. Their last three games was 6-0, 9-0, and 4-0, and their goal difference within their league is 112. So it's scary numbers, the amount of goals they're scoring. It's a really, really tough task. And I think, like, if you're Arsenal, you have to just kind of, accept what it is. You're not going to have the ball for a lot of the game, and it's just about how can we frustrate Barcelona, how can we keep them out, how can we keep the scoreline down or keep clean sheet, and how can we, reduce the space for them to play in. And often you find, look, this is Barcelona's fifth year in a row being in this final. The players know the emotions that are going to come with it and the feelings. And look, of course, they'll be nervous and they'll have the adrenaline as well. But for the likes of Arsenal players, it's, the amount of adrenaline that's going to go through, the amount of excitement. And often you see in cup finals, in the first 10 minutes, it's hell for leather, it's 100 mile an hour. But I think Arsenal need to be, manage all of that, just keep it as calm as possible and just make themselves as hard as possible to beat, because, Barcelona are so good at the moment. And even like Pyne is their top goal scorer, and she's 25 in the league. But even after that, even if you do keep her quiet or keep her out, she, they have Mateus, they have Bonmati, who are all popping up with goals as well. So it's not a case of they'll just keep her quiet and the rest will suffer. But yeah, it's a really tough game. But you can imagine their game plan would be just go in and make ourselves as hard as possible, keep them out as long as we can, as best we can, keep a clean sheet as long as we can. And I think the worst thing they can do is concede early. So it's just about managing that first 10, 15 minutes and don't let the excitement and the occasion get you.
Yeah, and for Katie's specific role as well, what you expect? Obviously, there'll be a lot of defending to do as well, but there may be an opportunity in the game at some point for her to sort of show her attacking intent as well.
Yeah, and look, she done that in the semi-final. She marked one of their best players out of the game. And look, Katie's obviously a really good attacking player, but she's really good defensively. And we know from watching her, she's not afraid to make a hard tackle or leave one in on a player, and I assume she's going to be doing the same. And like I said, it's, you pick your moments in these kind of games where you have to understand you're going to have to be hard to beat, but when you do see your moment of we can go and attack, then you go for it. But look, I'm sure Katie, she plays with her heart on her sleeve. I'm sure it's not going to be any different now on Saturday, and you just hope, look, even if they don't get the win or they don't get it over the line, that it's not a really high scoring game or a game that's over after 30 minutes. It's they get the full experience of playing the Champions League final and push them as far as they can. But look, it's obviously a really tough task, but you just never know, I suppose.
No, no, and that's what football is. That's the joy of it. And the one thing, Anthony, that she won't be lacking for is support in the stands, at least from based on what Carla Ward said in the presser today.
Yeah, there's a lot of Irish players going to the game. Yeah, I mean, this is like another part of these kind of occasions that players have to deal with, Raf, I guess. Like, I'd say our phone is hopping all week with, friends and family and teammates and looking for tickets and all the rest. But yeah, there is quite a number of Irish players who will go to Lisbon, watch the match on Saturday evening, and then fly from Lisbon to Istanbul on Sunday to link up with the Irish squad, and then they'll get to work the following day ahead of that game against Turkey, which is obviously a massive game for them and a must-win game for them to keep alive any hope of winning the group. So, yeah, look, it's going to be a great occasion. Just anecdotally, you're hearing there's a lot of people from this part of the world who will be going to the game to support Arsenal and Katie, you'd imagine mostly. And she can join a very exclusive club with the other three Irish players he named, Ciara Grant, Yvonne Tracy, and Emma Byrne, who won the Champions League for Arsenal in 2007. Rachel has just laid out how difficult it's going to be for them. But look, you never know. You never know. And it's not like Arsenal are complete no hopers here. They have quality and they have players, but they're coming up against like a team that will just own the ball and have so many killers in their team, like goal scorers that can just kill you in a blink of an eye. World Cup winners, everything like so. It's a big ask, but look, anything can happen in the final.
Yeah, it certainly can. And let's turn attentions to the Women's Premier Division. On Saturday, Shamrock Rovers won the derby against Bowes 1-0 away from home. DLR Waves got a draw against Cork City, so 1-1 there. Peamount beat the newcomers Waterford 1-0. Galway United, another defeat there, 3-1 at home to Treaty United. And then yourself, Rachel, and Shells beat Wexford 6-1. And, I think in the recent weeks, what we've been talking about is how, the first half often for yourselves has been quite tight, and then you kind of show your strength as the game goes on. Today or on Saturday, this was quite different. You were kind of dominant throughout.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I think we probably dominated from start to finish, but look, we definitely weren't expecting a 6-1 win. We knew Wexford had a bit of a rocky start to the season, but their last few games they kind of pulled it back and got a good few performances in. But I think, look, we had a great start to the game. Kate Moon had a great finish on the 9th minute, and then Avian Clancy then 5 minutes later puts us 2-0 up. And the funny thing is, going in at half time, we were actually disappointed with the chance we missed to go 3-0 up. And to be fair, their keeper makes a really good save for a penalty when Kate Mooney gets through 1-on-1, and the keeper again makes a good save. But yeah, like I said before the game, we would have took your hand off to be 2-0 up, but we were actually disappointed going in that we hadn't killed the game, because yourself at 2-0, it's the next goal is the real crucial one. And we knew if we had got it 3-0, the game would have been over. And the second half then they looked a bit dangerous. Amanda McQuillan makes a great save. They hit the crossbar, so we didn't want to give them any more hope. And then at 60 minutes, Kate Mooney gets us 3-0 up, and then I think pretty much then we knew the game was over. And then, like you said, we make our changes that we have at the moment, and Noel Murray came on, Rowan McLaughlin and Jess Gargan all came on at the same time to finish out the last 25 minutes for us. And we got 4-0 then, and look, Ellen Malloy, does what she does best, and it was a typical Ellen Malloy goal. And I think even they felt it was too little too late at that stage, and then we just finished again with another two in their net. But look, we definitely didn't expect 6-1. I don't think they probably did either. It's I think we caught them on a bit of a bad day, and we're just in such good form at the moment, and such a good start to the game. It's we're good going forward at the moment, but we're also good defensively, and if we're going 2-0 up, it's we'll back ourselves to see the game out. So look, really, really happy. Obviously disappointed to concede one goal, but it's just about getting 3 points at this stage.
Yeah, no, as you said, Malloy did score, and it was a superb solo run as well, just really brilliantly taken. But that came after you'd gone off, and what something that was noticeable, I think, it was in the build up to the second goal that you score. You're kind of shadowing her as a long pass comes towards her, and that kind of almost cuts off the supply line, and one of your teammates then comes in and sort of nips in front. So was that sort of how you look to deal with her generally? Just make sure you're shadowing, and then try and press from the front as well.
Yeah, well, that was, we knew Ellen is obviously their most dangerous player. So my role was to basically just, keep her quiet as possible. And look, it's a really hard task. She got away from me a few times in the first half. She's really hard to mark. But we knew if we kept her out of the game, if we kept her quiet, we'd probably have enough to go and win the game. And yeah, I press her from behind, and Leah Doyle is brilliant to win it in front and then we go and score from. But yeah, look, she's an excellent player. You can see the goal that she scored, even the goal in the last few weeks that she scored. So yeah, my role was just to, keep her out of the game as much as possible and not worry so much about attacking. And look, it obviously works. She's really, really hard to play again. She's a super talent, and she's definitely someone that, we'd love to see playing for Ireland one day. It's just maybe when our time is right.
Yeah, and like you've great momentum, Athlone have great momentum at this stage. They're just very slightly ahead of you in the table, and it would have been a block. But if the fixture, if the fixture gods had set it up for this weekend, it'd be a huge blockbuster. But now you're both having to take a bit of a break, international break, and then either side of that there's All Ireland Cup game. So it'll be a very different proposition when you do actually meet each other.
Yeah, look, this weekend would have been a great time for us to play, but also a great time for them to play. So you have to just take it for what it is. But the game is nearly a month away at this stage. So yeah, like you said, All Ireland Cup break, another All Ireland game. So look, I just think with these kind of things, you can either dwell on them or you just, it is what it is. It's the same for them. So there's no excuses. But, we have everyone fit at the moment, which is a really big thing for us. And, at the start of the year, we had kind of a couple of injuries, and the starting 11 was not picking itself, but there wasn't so many different calls now. But with everyone back fit, he definitely has a lot of headaches. But like you said earlier, it's the quality that we have coming off the bench, no matter who starts and who finishes the game. Yeah, our 11 is always as strong as it when it starts. So, it's really difficult for Owen at the moment to pick a good start 11, but whatever 11 we finish with and start with seems to be, doing the job at the moment.
Yeah, and then for Galway United, so they're going through a bit of a tough time, and obviously Treaty as well. Isabella Flacchini kind of playing quite well for them, and got a brace again in their game.
Yeah, like that's, like we always kind of say there's within early because it's so short, you often get a period of like say 2 or 3 weeks where you have 2 or 3 games in a row and you kind of think, these 2 or 3 weeks are going to be really defining for our season. And fortunately Galway probably had that period where they played at Lown, played Shelbourne and played Treaty, and you're looking at those 3 games in a row saying, we need to get something from these 3 weeks. And unfortunately they've lost all three, and sometimes that can really determine your season. Like there's still a long way to go, so we'll be writing them off. But that was a period where they, really need to stamp their name if they wanted to be contenders for the league. But look, obviously not much between our game against them, but 3-0 against that Loan and then 3-1 against Treaty. And I think if you want to win a league, it's you don't concede 3 goals in many games, and they seem to be conceding quite a lot. And I just think that period was really big for them, and they've probably come out the wrong side of it.
Yeah, and I suppose the final one to mention, just the Dublin Derby as well. So a 1-0 win for Shamrock Rovers in that, but it was a game where I think the woodwork seemed to be getting the most usage in that.
Yeah, and look, even the goal is so unfortunate. And I don't know what Fiona Donnelly's trying. I think she tries to clear, but kind of hits her knee and she kind of runs it into the goal, and Rachel Kelly just has no chance. So, I'd say he probably classes a lucky win for Rovers, but look, everyone rides their luck at some stage, and everyone looks back at a season where they've had lucky wins, and even up the other end, I think it was the 94th minute, and bows are through, and I think Katie Keane makes a save, it's a bit of a scramble, and falls to Savannah Kane, and she, hits the crossbar, and it's, it could have easily been a draw, but Rovers get out there with 3 points, and look, we've had plenty of lucky wins along the way. It's something that you just get, but yeah, for Rovers, I think they'd be counting their stars that they won that match.
Yeah, and so what it does to the table, all those results. So Athlone on 25, yourselves on 24, although you have the goal difference advantage, 28 goal difference there to Athlone's 23. Wexford in third on 16, and then Shamrock Rovers and Treaty on 15 apiece. And I think that brings us to a close for now. Rachel, thanks very much for your time. And Anthony, thanks to you as well.
Thanks, Raf.
Thanks, Raf.
All right, now I'm joined by Richie Towell and Barry Murphy, and we'll be talking about Heimir Hallgrimsson's Ireland squad announcement and Friday and Monday's LOI action. But first, lads, how are you?
All good, Raf. Thanks for having us.
All right, good stuff. Before we get cracking into the Ireland squad and also the LOI, including the two games last night, there was something I was watching last week, which was the Stick to Football podcast, the one that Roy Keane is on, and they had Sean Dyche as a guest, and he was kind of talking back his experiences managing at Burnley and also at Everton, and there was something he brought up which he was quite strong on, which was this idea of always wanting his players to wear shin pads in training. So I was kind of interested in your own experiences as players, like if shin pads were sort of like a thing that you just would have worn or you don't like wearing or whatever it is. So Richie, yourself at either Rovers or Dundalk, shin pads in training or not?
Never, honestly, Raf, in all the years I've been playing football, never, ever, ever wore shin pads in training. I think even if you see now some of the lads' shin pads that they're wearing in actual games, some of them are this size, they're tiny, they are, which is absolutely crazy. Now, in a game, I do have proper shin pads on because, like that, if you're going in for a tackle, you want to be protected, you do. But some of the lads have little bits of cardboard, little bits of like anything. They just put anything down to make it look like a shin pad, you do, which is crazy is when you think about it. But in training, no, definitely not. That's not something that, because you'd have to wear the long socks in training, and then you'd feel like a big rugby player. You would.
Yeah, and I think Barry, I mean, I don't, I'll get your kind of take on your own experience as well, and maybe it's slightly different for goalkeepers as well. But I think Sean Dyche's argument is it adds that little bit more bite in training, and that's what he wanted to bring in at Everton. So I don't know where you stand on, or in when it comes to like the size of shin pads as well that Richie's mentioned. Are you shopping in the kids section, or are you actually going into the proper adult size shin pads?
You probably would have seen it down through the years. The size of the shin guards have come down. They used to be huge, like the hockey goalkeeper shin pads, and they've come down now where you probably see players now taking the rubber off the back of the shin pads, and you'd slide that down the sock so it has the shape of a shin pad, but not the kind of plastic and the kind of defensive side of things. But he probably does have a point. As I said, like the 2013, myself and Greg Bulger knocked each other out of the FAI Cup final in a tackle together in training. So maybe I probably should have heeded the warning from Sean Dyche back then.
Yeah. Now, I suppose moving on from that, obviously we've got very clear answers on the shin pad or no shin pad thing. But first things first, I suppose here on RT, we will be showing a record 6 fixtures from this season's Sports Direct Men's FAI Cup as part of a new 2-year broadcast agreement with the Football Association of Ireland. So that's from this season's third round onwards, and next season it will be the second round all the way to the 2026 final. So for this season, the first of those third round fixtures will be on the week ending Sunday, 17th of August. Now, let's turn our attentions to the makeup of the Republic of Ireland men's squad for the June friendlies against Senegal and Luxembourg. I was up at Abbottstown to cover it myself for RT.ie last Wednesday, and there's a few takeaways. Most, but not all, of the contingent from the championship have been rested, and there are 4 fresh faces: goalkeeper Josh Keeley, midfielder Killian Phillips and John Patrick Finn, and Shamrock Rovers defender Josh Honohan. Now, 3 of those started out in the LOI, and Honohan is one of the leading stars in the Premier Division, so that's a boon for the league as well overall. Heimir, he was also noticeably bullish in the press conference, and then when he went away for the embargoed section for the dailies, which I also sat in on, in terms of selecting friendly opponents, which players are being rested, and the logistics that all the planning is being done with the idea that we will be at the World Cup next summer. So that's how he's kind of looking at it. But Barry, I suppose first on Josh Keeley, he would have started out at Pats and then very quickly went off to Tottenham. He's been on loan first at Barnet last year, and then with Leyton Orient this year, and he was involved in penalty heroics as well in their playoff in League One. So what have you made of his elevation? Because we've seen him with the under-21s, but maybe because of the division he's playing in, we don't see a whole pile of him.
Yeah, it's been phenomenal. When I went in at Pats, he was a young lad, obviously coming through, and I think he thought he was going to be number 2 that season, to beat Slavia at Liverpool, and what a player to learn off as well. And I came in as the kind of senior goalkeeper. And I kind of pulled him aside and said to him, listen, I'm not here to take your place. I'm here for a specific reason as a second goalkeeper, as an experienced one, to kind of to guide. Vich was only a young goalkeeper as well, to kind of just be there to bounce ideas off. And if needs be, I'll come in and do things. And he took that on board, and he just trained so well that season, and he's kind of grown into his stature as well. He's a big lad, 6'2", 6'3", but he's added real bulk to his presence as well. And he's been so good since he's gone to Leyton Orient. You just look at the confidence he has now, scoring goals as well. So he's got that to his game, but he's a real presence and a real stalwart in that team, and first name in the team sheet. And again, he's topped that off with a penalty save and a trip to Wembley, and then an international call up all within a couple of days of each other. And it's brilliant to see, because it's something we do have as a wealth of goalkeepers, but you've got to get your chance really, and that's what Spurs gave him. Pat Jennings got him over to Spurs kind of on a trial basis. He obviously has the links there, and they liked what they saw and saw the talent that is there, and it's starting to come to fruition now.
Yeah, and he's got the League One playoff final against Charlton coming up as well, so that'll be interesting, especially if he can help them get up to the Championship. But of course, he's on the books at Spurs. The others, Richie, John Patrick Finn, and Killian Phillips. Interesting call-ups given their size and scale, and in an area of midfield where we don't have a lot of depth, that kind of number six role. So Heimir's gonna have a look at those players. I was looking at Killian Phillips at the weekend. I was watching St Mirren versus Celtic, and he's playing sort of like right side of the sort of central midfield trio. And the one thing that stands out, he's got huge presence. And I know you've played against him when he was kind of a young lad at Drogheda, coming through. Like, what's your memories of what he was like then, and maybe what you've made of the bits you have seen of him since?
Yeah, he's done really well since he went up to the SPL. First and foremost, it's a great opportunity for both of them because, as we see, a lot of the lads that are playing in the Championship, they've had long, grueling seasons, and not just physically but mentally, they'll be tired. So for the two lads to get an opportunity like they have, it's incredible. It is, especially the games that they're going into as well. Two good games that they'll be able to get some game time, hopefully. And obviously with the likes of Killian, and he's a massive presence. He's a lad that can really get around the pitch. And to be fair, Ireland don't really have that sort of midfielder. So for someone like him to come into the team, he could be a real shining light. He could. So it's just down to him now to take his chance with both hands, really.
Yeah, any memories? I think he played against him twice in 2021, so it's a good few years ago now. But and he was obviously much younger as well, so probably hasn't kind of filled up in terms of the physicality side. But anything stand out from playing him?
Genuine, Raf, I don't actually remember that. I would have always been the type of player that would have just been fully focused on my own game and air team. I would have never really looked too much into opposition. Or now, obviously, you see the big physical presence that he is, and that's something that kind of does catch your eye when you're on the pitch, like how big someone is. But for me, I would have always just been really, really focused on myself. So I don't remember too much on playing against him, to be honest with you. But listen, he's gone on to have done really well for himself, considering where he was at Drogheda to where he is now. So for him to get a call up to the Ireland team is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and obviously via Crystal Palace as well, which is the jumping off point from Drogheda. Now, I've left this one for last, Richie, but it's not certainly a reflection of who he is, but it's just because we're going to be coming to the League of Ireland section very shortly. And this is obviously Josh Honohan. There was a possibility he could have been called up in March. It didn't happen. He's finally had the opportunity now. And Heimir's talked about, his versatility. I think you've spoken about him a lot on this podcast, both in the Ireland context and just what he's doing at Shamrock Rovers. So, as a former teammate of his, you must be delighted to have seen his name, finally in there, and we'll see how many minutes he kind of gets in June as well.
Yeah, do you know what? It'd be great to see him actually playing as well. Obviously, I spoke about it in March when he got called up to the provisional squad, and you don't want it to be that token gesture, or we're doing it for the league. Josh is a really, really good player. He can play at a really high level. I know Stephen Bradley probably won't thank me for this, but I think he probably will be the next one to go. And when he does go, I think everybody will actually take a step back and realise how good he is. Obviously, playing in this league, he's done tremendously well. He has, but sometimes you don't really get the credit where it's due. When you're playing in the League of Ireland, it's only then when you take the next step. Like when Liam Scales was playing in the League of Ireland, everybody knew how good of a player he was, but it was only when he went to Celtic then that people actually realised, wow, this boy can really play. So I think something similar is going to happen with Josh. So for the games coming up now, I would love if he was able to minimum even get onto the pitch and show what he can do. But it'd be great to see him start the game because he's in full flow now. I went to watch him play last night. He was brilliant again last night against St. Pat's. He was. So for him, he'll be really fit, full of energy. He'll have a real boost getting called up into the Ireland squad. So it'd be great if he could actually start the game, and I think everybody then would be able to really see what he's all about.
Yeah, and obviously, social media being what it is, Barry, I did see one or two cynics kind of throwing that word out there, kind of Richie mentioned there, the word kind of token, that is a gesture to appease sort of League of Ireland fans. But Honohan, I think, in fairness to him, has been brilliant in the league and then also in the European games where he's coming up against seasoned internationals for clubs across the continent. So he's clearly there on merit. But when you look at the league as a whole, because he's probably one of the leading lights in it, but there are others maybe who would be on the kind of fringes, Barry. Who do you think could also get close to, knocking on the door in the longer term as well? Obviously, there's the younger lads like Melia, Oisín Vuna, and Noonan that we've talked about, but are there others maybe that are a little bit older that you feel in the medium term could, with a good run of form, also join Honohan and sort of being on the fringes of this?
Yeah, I think judging by his form at the moment, Graham Burke has got to be up and around that squad. I think he's got to be seriously looking at him. He adds something totally different to what we do have, and again, people will kind of dilute his performances by saying it's in the League of Ireland, but it's not. He's done it in Europe as well. Exceptional last season in that European run, and you just look at now, you've got kind of Jack Byrne and Graham Burke back on the pitch together, and they're just there's a free flowing football nature to it at the moment, and it's just something we don't have in abundance. And you look at kind of Knight, Cullen, Malumbi, all small ball and all similar type of players. He adds, and Heimir's obviously gone with a bit of size this time. All those kind of lads around the 5'7" mark, and he's added a bit of height in there. But in these games, it can be that little bit of quality that Graham has, that if you do expose him to this level, that he could come good for us. And that's probably the only one at the moment that really is putting his name forward, that could be the next one to step up.
Okay, so we'll see anyway. But June friendlies anyway, June 6th and 10th, which is Senegal, and then Luxembourg, which is going to be away from home. Now in the men's Premier Division, we'll talk about the Monday games, so the ones from last night very shortly. But first, a reminder of Friday's results. Bohemians beat Shelbourne 1-0. Shells were down to 9 men. Drogheda United and Derry City drew 1-1. Sligo Rovers got a very, very valuable victory, 1-0 away at Galway United, who are suddenly in quite poor form, at least on the results front. St. Pat's in a bit of a cracker there, 3-2 win over Cork City, who have a new manager in place. We'll talk about that later on. And then Shamrock Rovers 3-1 winners at Waterford. And then last night, Shamrock Rovers beat St. Pat's 4-0. So we'll start on this before talking about the Drogheda Shells game. So Michael Noonan and Graham Burke, who's been mentioned there with a brace, and then Aaron Green and Richie, over the last few weeks, I think there's been this sense of Shamrock Rovers building. So they went top last week, and then now 2 wins in a row, 2 very good wins over the weekend. Suddenly they have a huge amount of momentum. And then when you look at the scoreline against Pats, that is seriously impressive.
Yeah, do you know what, Raf? They're motoring nicely at the moment. They are. I obviously went up to watch the game last night, and they were probably only in third gear, and they were cruising. They were honestly the free flowing football, like what Barry has touched on there. They were really, really good. Michael Noonan, Graham Burke, Jack Byrne, they were causing all sorts of problems. The Pats centre half didn't know whether to step in with Graham Burke, whether to stay. If they stayed, he was getting on the half turn and dribbling at them. If they went in, Michael Noonan was running in behind. Jack Byrne was going in to pick the ball up off the Shamrock Rovers keeper. Nobody knew whether to go in with him or not. I was really, really impressed with Shamrock Rovers last night. To be fair, up until the goal, it was quite even. And then got a bit of a rush of blood to head. Came running out of goal. Michael Noonan done really well to turn and finish. But after that, Pats just, their heads hit the floor, they did. And you could see the confidence oozing out of Rovers then. They were knocking the ball around, creating chances. And then you get to Graham Burke's goal. Graham Burke picked the ball up in his own half, took about 25 touches of the ball, and had a free shot on Pat's goal. Nobody touched him, Raf. Nobody closed him down. I couldn't believe what I was watching. The body language from the whole Pat's team was awful throughout the whole game. So yeah, really, really disappointing from Pats. But on the flip side, Rovers were absolutely excellent. They were.
Yeah, and the Rovers' defense as well, because obviously we're talking about the attacking end, Barry. It was glittering on one end, but defensively they seem to have shored up that little bit. I suppose Ed McGinty as well, having more of a relationship with those centre backs in front of him. What have you made about the way they've defended, especially over that weekend? First in the Waterford game where they gave up a goal early to Padraig Gammon, but then kept a clean sheet after that point, and then obviously keeping Pats quiet, albeit Melia had a good few chances last night as well.
Yeah, that first goal for Waterford, Padraig Gammon is just a stunning header. And he's probably one of the only ones in the league that could do that. So you can't. It's kind of undefendable. He's headed it from the edge of the box and scored a stunning goal. But last night they were just so comfortable. I think at one point Josh Honohan was playing left wing back. They put him in right of a three at the end of the game. He played so just again showing his versatility. But McGinty made a big save as well from Melia early on in the game, and it kind of turned the tide a little bit, and Joseph Anang's rush of blood, it kind of really kickstarted Rovers' performances. But yeah, the clean sheets have been coming They've the best defense in the league at the moment, and obviously the best scoring as well. So you're not going to go far wrong when those two are happening for you, and they just hit a real groove at the moment.
Yeah, and Richie touched on the Pats defending. You also mentioned Barry the the rush of blood at the head that Anang had and kind of rushing out for the in the build up to the first goal. What have you made of Pats' defending in recent weeks? Because they concede two against Cork City, and then again they get trashed and concede four as well.
It's been abysmal, Raf. That's the only way to really put it. It was an odd one last night. They went 3-5-2, which isn't a Stephen Kenny formation. Down through the years, he's just not known for doing that. And Jack was just getting the ball and spinning it down over the wing backs' heads, and Noonan was just chasing everything down. They had Luke Turner playing left of a three at the back, and he was in all sorts of trouble, really. It was just an interesting one because they had Breslin on the bench as well, and Solberg, two full backs that were obviously fit enough to play and didn't play them. And you just think, I couldn't believe didn't change at half time after they were 2-0 down. I was crying out for McLennan to come in and sit beside Jamie Lennon in the middle and short things up a little bit, and he's good going forward. He just didn't make the changes, and it was just so slow and to go and do anything. And then suddenly they were 3-0 down, and the game's gone for them. But really basic mistakes. And yeah, to be fair to Joe Redmond, he was the only one that kind of came out of it with any credit last night.
Yeah, and then just on the Waterford game as well. So that's on Friday night, Richie. So obviously Barry's mentioned the lovely header from Podjamin to open it up, and in recent weeks Waterford had been in good form leading into that defeat. Now, from a John Coleman point of view, are you looking at it and thinking it's one of those he can just write off, or is it a bit of a worry, sort of the nature of the goals they conceded against Rovers?
Yeah, look, first and foremost, I think it's vintage Padraig Hammond, wasn't it? That goal, Barry's dead right. Like, there's nothing you can really do against that. It's a nice cross, but Padraig Hammond's actually on the back pedal and still manages to head in. He's brilliant at that. He's been doing it his whole career. So that's kind of undefendable. Like, for a centre half and for a goalkeeper, there's nothing you can really do about that. The only thing you can maybe do from a Rovers point of view is stop the cross coming in, but even the cross is coming from a little bit of a deep position, so it's really hard. In terms of John Coleman, look, he'd be devastated with the way they concede the goal. Obviously, the goalkeeper plays it straight to Michael Noonan. Similar to Pat's, our goal, Michael Noonan has quite an easy finish. And then there was a few signs there. Graham Burke again picked up the ball, dribbled it a long, long way. No shot, no tackle, had a free shot on target. So there'll be little tweaks that John Coleman will want from Waterford, but I think over a whole since he's come in, he'll be absolutely delighted with them because, listen, I think Shamrock Rovers will go on and win it. I know that's probably a bit of a biased point of view, but I think they will go on to win it with what I've been watching over the last couple of weeks. So John won't be measuring everything up against them playing against Shamrock Rovers because they are on a different level, but there will be certain things that he'll want to tweak, but I think overall he'll be really happy with what he's seen since he's gone in.
Yeah, and Waterford have Pats away, and then they've drawn at home in their next couple of games. And moving on to Cork City, Barry, obviously they've brought in Gerard Nash as the manager now. He's got some experience coaching underage teams at Ipswich and Aston Villa, and also worked within the FAI as well, and was the first team coach in his last job in Sweden with the Gothenburg-based side GAIS. So he's used to working with young players. It's an intriguing appointment given where Cork City are, and maybe the sort of stereotype of a profile that you would assume would go into a job where it's about battling against survival. But what did you make of the appointment?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. He's somebody that's been kind of floated around a couple of jobs the last kind of couple of seasons. Anytime something's come up, his name is always seems to be in the hat, and he hasn't quite got over the line in it. Now, they said before he turned down the Cork City job, but he'd wonder what's changed between then and now. Because listening to Tim Clancy after his decision to leave, it sounds like he was doing everything down there, from video analysis to coaching the team. Like, a manager should be sitting back and stepping in every now and again, putting his little tweak on things, but leave it to the coaches. And like, obviously, he's going to have to live down there. He's going to have to integrate himself into the side. He's got a really young squad who are devoid of confidence at the moment. It would have been a big result on Friday, but then you go and lose that lead. So he's got a massive job in his hand, but there must be some sort of assurances from Dermot Usher there that the funds will be there to bring in an assistant manager, to bring in the video analysis guys, that type of professionalism. That should be just standard now at every club, because it is in the other clubs in the League of Ireland. So for a club the size of Cork City to not have that in place, you just don't set yourself up to go and win games and win leagues like other teams have done.
Yeah, and based on their result against Pats, so they still lost 3-2, but they scored a couple of goals in it, and then obviously Shawnee Maguire is back and scores a penalty as well. Richie, are there green shoots that you feel that Gerard Nash can work with there to try and revitalise Cork? Because suddenly now we'll talk about Sligo Rovers later. Sligo Rovers are right with them now.
Yeah, look, if you go away from home, especially against St. Pat's were tipped as one of the favourites to win the league. If you go away from home and score 2 goals against them, the manager will be looking there thinking, do you know what, there's stuff we can work with there, especially when you have, I know Shawnee, he only scored a penalty, but Shawnee's a natural goal scorer. He's done it his whole career, so he'd be delighted to have him back first and foremost. But then it's just the goals they're conceding, Raf. Like, you can't be relying on Shawnee or Daniels to come out and score a couple of goals every week to get you out of jail. You need to be keeping clean sheets, and that's like Waterford. They were off the back of keeping clean sheets where they were able to nick a few wins. They had terrible troubles at the back, they did, and then the new managers came in, the intern won first, and then John Coleman, and they really shored it up at the back, they did. That's something that Cork City most definitely need to do, because you can't go away from home and concede 3 goals and expect to get anything from the game. So they'd be absolutely devastated with that, because as I said, scoring 2 goals, going so deep into the game in the lead, and then they come out with nothing, they'd be absolutely devastated.
Yeah, and now Liam Carney is, of course, heads up the academy, so he was in interim charge for that game, and he'll be staying on as interim assistant in the shorter term until they appoint somebody permanently in that role. But moving on to Shelbourne against Raleigh United, so it was a 0-0 draw last night. Barry, not the best game to watch in the world in terms of the chances for either side, although again it was still an intriguing enough game. 68% possession for Shells. They didn't do a huge whole pile with it, and maybe there's a sense that Sean Boyd's absence and the lack of chaos that he can bring is certainly something that they're missing, Barry.
Yeah, it is. You look at the results, they've only 9 wins in their last 30 games, 1 in 8 this season, and they're just not scoring goals. They've scored 2 goals in the last 5 games, and they were never a free-flowing scoring side, but they always had that kind of clinical edge to them when they did get chances in the games, and they obviously kept the door shut at the other end, and that's just not happening either. And listen, you just have to look at maybe the recruitment in the off season. You knew centre half was a position that was vital to them last season, and they never really recruited in that area. And since Paddy Barrett's been out, they've been abysmal at the back. Like, he offers so much going forward. He's almost playing in that quarterback role where he's slotting balls over fullback's head from that deep position, and he's obviously so defensively astute as well that he's a massive loss. But you've got to overcome those things. The other teams have done that, and putting Coyle in there just hasn't worked for the last 2 games. And obviously he's suspended for last night, but you just take him out of midfield and they lose too much in midfield when he's not there. And they don't have the attacking ability at the moment. The creative players aren't firing. Wood is the only one that could kind of put his name forward as doing okay the last couple of games, and it's just not happening. It's a real one for probably the first time for Damon, where you see what he's kind of made of now, what he can get out of this squad, how he can turn things around, and it needs to start quickly.
Yeah, and speaking of Damien Duff now, the previous game against Bowes, he was perched on a grassy knoll behind the wee stand. Obviously, there's the picture which kind of captures him there as well on the Peters Road side of Daleyman Park. So, Richie, just from your own experience, if a manager isn't there on the sideline, does it really make a difference to you?
I'd say the Shells players would have been delighted that he wasn't on the sideline. Just so they're calmer, to be honest. Now, look, Damien, he would have had all his work done throughout the week. The Shells players would have known exactly what they had to do. So realistically, you don't really need your manager shouting on from the sideline every 2 seconds. If you're at that doing your work during the week, you have everything prepared and you're ready to go, well, then you don't need your manager to be there shouting. Obviously, sometimes it's good to have him there if he needs to give a few little pointers or if there needs to be a tweak in formation or anything like that. But listen, Joey O'Brien was there. He was a clever player. He's a clever assistant manager. He was well able to hold the reins down. But Shelbourne were actually early on in the game. It's something about them over the last, probably the whole season, to be fair, especially the last couple of weeks, where they've started the games really slowly. Bohemians came out with the traps against them, absolutely flying, they did. And it kind of took Shelbourne by surprise. And I wasn't surprised at all, because the Bohemians fans were really in full voice. They were really getting behind the team. So it was kind of expected. And Shelbourne looked a bit shell-shocked. And it probably goes to show a bit uncharacteristic from Mark Coyle turning into Tierney to concede the penalty and get sent off. It really killed them throughout the whole game. Then it did.
Yeah, what did you make of the red cards, Richie? Just the Mark Coyle one, fair enough, and
Yeah,
and Ali Coote as well, the second yellow, which again, whether it's a dive, not a foul, it's one of those. It's one of those, I suppose.
I think Mark Coyle's one letter of the law. Now he was denying a goal scoring opportunity, so he can have no complaints about that. Ali Coote I thought was really harsh, like because Tierney kind of does. He does kind of kick through him a little bit. It's probably not enough for a penalty, but I don't think it's enough for a yellow card either. And you know what? There was probably 10 to 12 minutes left in the game, and Shelbourne down to 9 men were brilliant. They were, as I said, they started the game really slowly when they had 11 men. They went down to 9 men. They had a real go at Bohemians, and they probably could have nicked something at the end. Nebo had one, I think, cleared off the line and went out for a corner. It did. So, look, as good as they'll be, there was some positive taste coming towards the end of the game. Now, obviously, they didn't manage to take them positives into the game against Drogheda, unfortunately for them.
Yeah, and interesting what Richie mentioned there, Barry, about Shells being better when they went down first to 10 men, because then they had some chances. I think Meepo and Kerr McEnroy either side at half time seemed to fashion chances, and they were arguably the better team in that period. And even when they went down to 9 men, they were the ones putting the pressure on. Obviously, they're chasing the game, Barry. But do you feel maybe even with fewer players, there's more just clarity in their play, as in they're not playing the extra pass, and there's a bit more maybe there's directness or just a clarity maybe.
That's it, and that clarity comes when you've got no options. You can't afford to play extra passes. You don't have the players in midfield to play it in and feed it and go through the lines. So they had to go long, and they were getting chances off second balls. And their best chances of the game did come when they came down to 9 men. As Richie said, Meepo has a great chance on the half turn. He gets a turn and goes out for a corner. But Brad Atty just didn't look like really breaking bowls down. And again, just with Damien not being on the sideline as well, the only thing that you're missing with a manager not being there is he brings a real intensity to the performances. You can see him nearly walking along the sideline with them. So it's not really about the tactical side with him on the sideline. Joey's there to cover for that. He adds that kind of intensity and things that kind of feed the players feed off on the pitch, and that was missing on Fridays. As Richie said, Bowes came out of the traps, and you knew they were going to do that anyway. They've got a great turn of form now at home, and that's Jody stand behind you as well, so you knew they were going to come out, and you have to match that and try and get on top of it, and then try and play your football, but they just didn't do it.
Yeah, and just on Bowes, Richie, and their own performance, obviously they won 1-0 and they're continuing to build that bit of momentum from their recent form. But would Alan Reynolds be still looking at that performance? Yeah, happy with the 3 points, but maybe against a 10-man Shells and then what was a 9-man Shells by the end, that could have seen a little bit more from his own team.
Yeah, obviously, Bowes went 1-0 up straight away from the penalty and the sending off they did. And I was really wanting them to go for the jugular and be like, right, here's a statement from us. This is what we're all about. This is what we're going to do, and really push Shelbourne to the sword. Because as I said, Shelbourne started the game terribly. They did. They went down to 10 men. I was a bit fearful for them. I was. But the Bohemians keeper started like slowing the game down and wasting time. And I was thinking, well, what are you doing? Just get the ball back into play, work the legs off Shelbourne, and don't give them any opportunity to grow into the game. I was co-commentating on the game on Friday, and I said it straight away. I said, this slowing the game down could come back to haunt Bohemians, and it nearly did at the end, because Shelbourne, as I said, when they went down to 9 men, and it's exactly what both of you are saying, see that clarity where they had no other option, they had to go long. As soon as they turned the ball over, they were looking for Meepo and Harry Wood running in behind, and it caused Bohemians all sorts of problems. They should have had a goal just before half-time, and then they should have had one after half-time as well. So look, Alan Reynolds would be absolutely delighted with, first and foremost, the form that they're in, getting the win on Friday night. But there'll be parts of where he'll want them just to be a little bit more ruthless. Over the last couple of weeks, they've been really good at getting themselves back into games, but he'll want them to be taking the lead in games, but then putting teams to the sword a little bit, having a 2-3, 4-0 win, like what Shamrock Rovers done last night, where you really rub it into teams and you're like, you know what? This is what we're all about, and we're here to stay. So, look, yeah, you'd be delighted, but there'll be parts that they'll most definitely have to improve on.
Yeah, and then Barry for Drogheda, obviously from there for their couple of games as well, and the matches are sort of piling up for them. So it'll be interesting to see how they manage this sort of extra European phase and the impact on that. But defensively seems to be a better weekend for them, and then also the more, I suppose, games in the legs and minutes in the legs for Douglas James Taylor, who looked a little bit rusty up front yesterday, but maybe there are signs that he's obviously after a long layoff that he's kind of he'll be coming back to form soon enough.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what way they kind of play now. Because you look at the games, they've obviously given up possession in the games. I think 33% is the average they've had this season, and they've been prepared to do that until they get the likes of James Taylor back and Hui back, and he can kind of get on the ball more. He was probably their outlet last year in terms of getting up and down that right wing, but. I was fearful of them after I saw them against Shamrock Rovers. I thought the wheels might just come off here, but listening to Kev after the game last night, he's disappointed they didn't go and win it, and that's shows a sign of where they've come from and where they're looking to go. And it's going to be interesting now. Obviously, you're getting these games in early with the European games coming, but when you've got Thursday, Sunday fixtures, that's when it really starts to kick in, and it's all about the squad depth at that stage. And you look at the squad and wonder if they do have that depth there, but. When they do get their players available, their better players on the pitch, then they're still a really good side and they'll be right up there.
Yeah, and Barry just on Derry City as well. So they drew and they managed to get a draw out of the draw of the game on Friday, and they did seem to be under pressure for lots of it. Thomas Alua was getting a lot of opportunities, seemed very difficult to handle for them. So from a Tiernan Lynch point of view, is he looking at that almost as a win? Obviously, they have been in better form leading up to it, but given the circumstances of the game.
Absolutely. I think that's a massive result for them, just in terms of a mentality shift. That was the same game last season. They go on to lose that game. And no disrespect to the people in charge that were there last year, but there's a mentality shift there now. And I think with the kind of home form they're showing at the moment, and you've got a kind of a crowd that are backing you up there again. The Brandywell has probably been the most alive it's been since the new stadium's come back in. I think they're probably the ones that are going to challenge Shamrock Rovers, and it's obviously a big fixture on Friday night to see can they put it up to Rovers. They'll have both played 3 games in a week, so the legs will be weary going up there. But it'll be a statement game to see which one can kind of take the bull by the horns and take it on from there. But I think they'll be the ones challenging Rovers.
Yeah, and then Sligo Rovers, as I mentioned earlier, a priceless win over Galway United. So Reece Hutchinson with the winner in the second half. And I suppose Richie, what we've talked about with Sligo has often been how porous they've been at the back, but a clean sheet, it does give you a platform to try and win a game, and they managed to pull that off.
That's exactly it. That's what we spoke about with what Waterford done. They went back to basics, clean sheet. It's something that Cork need to do. And you see, in this league, if you keep a clean sheet, there's a really big chance that you'll go up the other end and score. Like, I know Galway they're in really poor form at the moment. I think they've only 1 goal in the last 4 games. Was it maybe 1 win in the last 7 games? So they're in a real rut at the moment. They started the season incredibly well, and they seemed to be the team that were scoring goals from everywhere. As I said, they were loading the box, similar to what Drogheda do, throw-ins, corners, anywhere there was a free kick, they were loading the box up, getting the big boys up, and they were causing havoc. Don't know what's happening over the last couple of weeks. They've seemed to have gone away from that a little bit, and it's really hurting them. It is because, as I said, 1 win in the last 7 and only 1 goal in the last 4 games. It's not good form to be in, like.
Yeah, and in that game as well, Barry, I suppose Hickey, he did hit the post, I think, and then there was another header which he put wide, which maybe on another day he might have scored. So there's still, the crosses are still going in, and Hickey's still getting in there. Moses Dyer is still being a nuisance, but suddenly the game against Cork, and especially now with the wild card that there's a potential manager bounce for Cork, we'll see, and that becomes a huge game for Galway now.
Yeah, it's massive because they're leaking goals at the other end as well. You look at the clean sheets they kept last season, it was a great platform to go on and get your 1-0 and 2-0 wins. It's not happening at the moment. And they've just tweaked things a little bit as well, trying to get Moses Dyer on the ball more, which when you've got a squad or a starting 11 that's catered towards set pieces from throw-ins, things like that, Hickey getting on the end of things, it's obviously affecting him because he's not chipping in with the goals or getting into the positions he was. So you've got to kind of tailor that a little bit. But again, when you've got somebody in the form of Dyer, you do want to get him on the ball as much as you can. But going into this game, it's huge because you've got to halt that negative momentum at the moment for Galway.
Yeah, and I suppose, Richie, when you've gone into games against teams where the manager has changed, how difficult is it? Because I'm sure little details change. Every manager opposition manager comes in, wanted to put their stamp on things and to make changes, and the blueprint that might have been there a couple of weeks before isn't there anymore. So how tricky can it be?
Yeah, it's always so difficult. Like, you look at Shamrock Rovers and they have that consistency where you know how they play every single week, same formation, similar players, the exact same style of football. Where you look at Cork now and they could change formation now after conceding 3 goals away from home against St. Pat's. They could completely change formation. They could completely change style of football. So yeah, look, it's really difficult when a new manager comes in, when you're playing against them, to try and figure out how they're going to play or what style of football are they going to play out from the back. Are they going to go more direct? It's really hard, it is, but I think most teams these days will be more concentrating on themselves, and especially teams like Galway and Sligo. That's exactly what they need to do. They need to concentrate on themselves before they're looking at any other team.
Yeah, and then in the first division on Friday, Bray Wanderers beat Athlone Town 3-1. Dundalk were 2-1 winners away at Cove Ramblers. Kerry and Wexford drew 1-1, and then Treaty United beat UCD 4-0. And I suppose first on Dundalk, Richie. So they had hit a little bit of a slowdown and a downturn at one point, but they're still top of the table, and that's a huge win considering who the opponents were as well, with Cove and your old pal Daryl Horgan, who we were on together here with him. I think it was the last international window, very much at the centre of this.
Yeah, they kind of had a small bit of a blip, they did, but that's expected. It is, like, Kieran Kilduff has done a fantastic job since he's gone in there, but he's still only a new manager in men's football. He is. So if you had offered them the opportunity to be where they are at the start of the season, they would have snapped the hand off you, and especially going down to play against Cove Ramblers, and they were their closest team to them at the time. They were, and to go down there and beat them, that's a real statement of intent. So I'm absolutely delighted for them, though, because I've said it a few times, I'd love to see them back in the league. It'd be great for them, and obviously with someone the likes of Daryl Horgan, with his quality, ex-Ireland international, for him to be playing in the 4th division with Dundalk, it's credit to him, because he wants to get the club back where they belong. And sometimes players, after relegation, they think, you know what, this isn't for me. They jump ship and go somewhere else. But he's at the holding the fort down there, and he's a real leader. He's captain of the football club. He lives up there. All his family are living up there with him there. So listen, it's absolutely great to see them where they are, because I'd love to see them back in the league.
Yeah, and Shane Griffin's free kick for Cove as well, definitely worth worth the entrance fee as well, just brilliantly taken. And then Connor Knight's goal for Bray Wanderers was also excellent in their victory, making it 2-0 against Athlone Town, just really well taken. So the pick of the bunch. But what Bray are doing overall, Barry, it's very hard to ignore. I mean, they've been flying, and maybe there wasn't as much expectation on them going into the season, despite what they did last season in terms of getting to the playoff final.
Yeah, and it's such a young squad as well. You just didn't really see it coming, and the consistency they've shown. Again, you're thinking, when's the wheels going to come off here? That kind of, with that youth, you kind of get inconsistent performances. But they've gone on, and they obviously got the win again on Friday. And listen, they're the ones that look like they're going to be challenging Dundalk, and you would have expected Cove to be right up there with the players they brought in from mostly Cork, and the money they've put in as well. But Bray are hanging in there, and you just don't know. You get into that playoff position, or you challenge Dundalk, and you don't know who you might get with the second bottom team in the Premier, and you've got every chance of going up.
Yeah, and I mentioned St. Mirren versus Celtic earlier, just in regards to Killian Phillips, because I really wanted to have a good look at him in terms of what he's been doing at club level. But a few days before that, I watched a bit of Celtic as well, and Johnny Kenny scores his first Celtic goal against Aberdeen. So I mean, Richie, you must have been delighted for him. He's had a few cameos here and there since coming back to the parent club after his loan at Shamrock Rovers last year. But this is a big moment for him, and also the praise from Brendan Rodgers, who, the phrase he used was he's a natural finisher.
I text Johnny during the week. I did, just to congratulate him. I did. It's brilliant. You know what? He was in incredible form. He was before he went back, and it kind of hindered him a little bit. He went back and didn't play. And for a striker, they just want to keep rolling. They do. They want to keep playing games, keep scoring goals. The confidence sky high. And he kind of went over there and didn't play. And when you're not playing, it gives you a little bit more time to think and start maybe having a little bit of self-doubt. Why am I not playing? Have I not been doing the business and training? And that can sometimes creep in, it can. But absolutely brilliant for him to get his first goal. And like what Brendan Rodgers says, like, Johnny doesn't really, he's not that player. Like, a Graham Burke or a Megan Keane and Mason Mealy, them type of players that want to link the play and bring people into the game. Johnny wants to get in behind and he wants to score goals. And for someone like him to score for Celtic, first and foremost, it's absolutely incredible. It's brilliant for me even to have witnessed that, to play with him. But players like that are worth so much money, Raf Diallo. Players that just want to get into the box and score goals. And it'd be brilliant to see him getting a bit more of an opportunity at Celtic. Well, it's going to be really, really tough because, as I said, Celtic are one of the biggest football clubs in the world. So it's going to be tough for Johnny, but I'd love to see him getting a few more opportunities, because I know if he does get the opportunities, he would score goals, because that's what he does. As I said, he doesn't want to come and link the play. Johnny wants to get in behind, get into the box, score goals, and that's exactly what he done the weekend.
Yeah, and obviously Adamida as well with a goal in that game as well. And that's, I think, 20 goals across this season as well. So it's been great for his confidence as well. I know he's had his ups and downs, Barry, but it's been that it has been a really good move for him, because at Norwich it seemed to be a case that I don't know, there wasn't that real sense of stability. He's kind of in and out of the team and maybe didn't feel like he was potentially back. Now he's much younger then, so maybe that's the case as well.
Yeah, but you look at his confidence levels compared to like an Evan Ferguson now, where you're not getting in any sort of squads, you're not getting onto the pitch, you're not getting any sort of game time, and scoring goals, no matter at what level, like you can bring that confidence into any level, kind of moving forward. And it's something the same with Johnny Kenny. Like he brought his goals to shot ratio right down at Shamrock Rovers. Remember the start of last season, he had to have 3 or 4 chances before he scored, and then that European run, he took that right down and he was scoring every time he went through, or 1 and 2 anyway. And he's kind of, he is that kind of natural striker. You see what Brendan Rodgers is talking about. He does have that instinct to go and get goals, and long may that continue.
Yeah, and I suppose one last one for the goalkeepers union. So obviously Caoimhín Kelleher is going to be number one for these games in June. Gavin Bazunu is out injured at the moment, and be interesting to see how his what's next for him at Southampton once he goes back. He's currently obviously injured, had that very brief loan spell at Standard Liège. But for Caoimhín, I think the writing's on the wall. I think it's very much accepted. You know, he's been involved in another league title win, and he will be moving on, because the Valencia number one, Georgia number one, Mamardashvili is probably going to come in as number two to Alisson next season. So the level of clubs that sometimes you hear being talked about in regard to Caoimhín, where do you feel he should go, or what's the best level for him?
I think there's probably 7 or 8 clubs that are interested in, really. But I think if you narrow it down, like you've got some of the big boys, Chelsea, United, Nottingham Forest already had a bid turned down from.
He's not going to United, I don't think.
No,
No,
yeah,
not a chance.
I don't think so. But I think the one that could be a realistic one from now is Aston Villa. You look at Emi Martinez, looked like he was saying his goodbyes at the weekend. You look at You're not taking a gamble on him at 20, 25 million. He's played 25 times for Liverpool in the Premier League, 4 in the Champions League. He's 22 times cap for his national team. You're not taking a gamble on a young lad at the moment. He's tried and tested at that level. So I think somebody like a Villa who are playing European football would be a great move for him at this stage. And as I said, the writing's probably on the wall that he does have to go to play some football now. But any team is getting a really experienced, good goalkeeper.
All right. We'll see how that pans out. Obviously, the transfer window will open in no time next month. But that's it for this week's podcast. We'll be back next Monday when we'll build up to the Champions League final, which you'll be able to watch live on RT2 and the RT Player on Saturday, May 31st. We'll also review the women's final and discuss how Katie McCabe and Arsenal got on. Plus, we'll build up to the Republic of Ireland Women's Nations League game in Turkey, which will be next Friday. And also, we'll be heading into the final round of LOI men's action before the international break. All that to come, and potentially the Republic of Ireland under-21 manager Jim Crawford. I might be speaking to him tomorrow, and then we'll put that out later this week. But thanks to you lads anyway, and we'll be back next Monday. Slán go fóill.